everyone. Welcome to the first Meet the 818 interview of 2022. Happy New Year. Hope everyone's doing well. Today we have Mia P. Manansala, author of Arsenic and Adobo, and also the first Zoom interview that I ever did. So welcome back, Mia, to another first. How are things going
thanks.
for you? Of course.
I think a lot of ups and downs. Arsenic and Adobo had a really good reception, much better than I honestly could have imagined. So it was, I'm really, really happy about that. Book 2, right now I'm on deadline, editing book 3, which is due on Wednesday. So if I seem a little frazzled, I'm sorry. I'm like, where even am I in time right now? And then book 2 comes out in 2 weeks. So I've been doing a lot of promo for that. So I'm like, I can't even remember where I am right now.
Oh no, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing that you're getting such a positive reaction with your series. And I always think if you have, it's better to be a little busy than just have that empty space to kind of go, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah. It's like right now, we're really riding the momentum. It's one of those things, some days it's overwhelming, but other days it's like, oh, thank goodness, let me stay busy so that my mind and my anxiety doesn't start filling in all these weird blanks that are not there.
Yeah. Exactly. So how has it been, releasing Arsenic and Adobo? We already jumped to the reaction that you've gotten for the book. Just the process of now that you're no longer a first-time author.
I know, it's so strange. I'm no longer a debut. It doesn't feel real.
And it was awesome. I was actually watching your unboxing of Arsenic and Adobo, and then the Halo-Halo and the Homicide. Homicide and Halo-Halo as well. So I teared up with your first unboxing, especially because the whole, it's your first book, and I could imagine it's kind of like giving birth to your first baby. And then how you dedicated it to your dad, so that holds a special place in my heart as well. So how was that, that whole experience from opening in the box and then seeing it in bookshelves, and then just your schedule filling up with all these webinars and book signings?
Yeah. 2021 was definitely a year where I learned that even good things are overwhelming, honestly, because it was, the fact that it was picking up momentum obviously is wonderful. As an author, you're writing alone for so long. Arsenic and Adobo took me almost 2 years to complete, a year and a half for me to get a general version done, and then another few months to get it polished before I could let anyone look at it. And that's a long time to be with something I wrote for me. I wrote it for me, and I wrote it for my mom, who was also a huge fan of mystery, but we never got to see ourselves in the pages. And then now it's out there in the world, and it's so strange that to feel so exposed, my protagonist, Lala Macapagal, it's not I can say in all honesty, she is not me.
Okay.
I gave her my voice. So in interviews, people are like, oh, I can kind of see how your writing style and your speaking style, how they're kind of similar in some ways. Yeah. So I gave her my voice, but not my personality. I wanted her to be able to stand on her own, right? This is fiction. I wanted to be able to be creative. But at the same time, she still came from me, right? This whole book, came from my heart. It came from years of trial and error, and revising. So it is still very special to me. And now it's just out there for anyone to read and critique. And there have been such, I still get these messages from readers who are like, oh, your book is the first time I've ever seen a Filipino main character like me. I've never felt seen before. All these things that really oh God, why did I open this email now? I'm going to start crying in the middle of while I'm waiting in the grocery line or something. Why didn't I wait till I was home? And then also you get the not so great reviews, and those are the ones that kind of stick with you, that I need to not have in my head, because my books are not for everyone, and I understand that, and I accept that. I don't need that negativity taking up space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will tell you, your book, I finished it in one day, which typically I could finish it in hours, but um, I have to I have to find spaces in the day to actually like sit down and read it. Like, if when my kid's watching TV, I'm like, all right, 2 hours, I can like just, do this. So, yeah, I read it. It was such a good read. In the sense that it wasn't just a mystery or a cozy mystery. It was also about Leela or Lila, however you want to pronounce it, and sort of her coming to terms with her own decisions in life, and sort of like a homecoming for her, and kind of reestablishing herself in her hometown of Shady Palms. And I thought that was a really good journey. I not that I see myself in her, but her interactions and the characters are diversified. Like, you have Adima and Amir, you have Detective Park and his brother Jay. Sorry, I had to and then you have the calendar titas are
they're so much fun to write. Like, it's one of those, you're like, being caught up, like with, and like in like having their attention on you is like really like deer in headlights. But this, as the writer, being able to put the people in that situation is so much fun.
I had flashbacks. I'm like, when
yeah,
I was
some
young.
of those things have definitely been said to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be able to use this someday.
The best line was like, "Oh my gulay," and is that your boyfriend? In my head, I mean, the titas had the Filipino accent.
Yeah.
They couldn't. I mean, they could have not have had that accent, but that's just experiential. It's like that's how I heard them in my head. And then just nailing down little details, like the that relationship with her cousin Bernie, or Bernadette, and it's like, it's just the way you wrote this book in particular was just, it was good. It was really
Thank
good.
you. I really appreciate that. Especially as it's my first book. I don't know. hopefully, I loved it, but hopefully other people can connect. So it means so much to find people that do.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I've had my boss, and I told you this. I sent you a DM. I said, my boss just bought 7 books.
Oh, thank you.
And shared it to all of her family members, and I'm just like, so it was good stuff. Like, I was talking to some people and just kind of like, hey, can you publish this like interview that I had with Mia, and just kind of like spread the word, because it's amazing to see character of your experiences in pages, versus having to read like a Christopher Pike or Valley High, or a more mainstream literature. So your book definitely like hit tones and hit like struck chords, and it's awesome. But also it left me wanting to know, like, spoiler alerts, by the way, to the listeners and the watchers, like, who's Leela gonna be ending up with, like Amir or Jay, or is Tita Rosie and Detective Park gonna come together?
It's so funny because like people always want to know. So like what I tell people is, because I don't want to give spoilers. So when I first started writing these books, I was given a 3-book contract, so that was all I was guaranteed. And so in case it was not renewed, I wrote it so that in book 2 she is very obviously leaning a particular way, and then by book 3 a decision has been made. So that's like not to leave people hanging just in case. And it's so funny because when I first started writing this, I didn't think I had a particular preference. Like I really wanted it to be, they represent 2 very different things and 2 different sides for her and 2 different choices, and I felt like they were kind of equally right. But then just kind of, it might have been and almost book 2 was really difficult for me to write, because I wrote it in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of like all this mess in the world that was going on. So, you know, things were a little bit heavier, both for me and then also, you know, for her. She went through a lot in Arsenic and Adobo. So it makes sense for me, in my mind, that in book 2, it's still lighter, it's still hilarious. You know, there's hilarious. Let me call myself hilarious. I think it's humorous, is what I was trying to say. It's still humorous, but there are heavier beats to it because she is dealing with some of the repercussions from book 1. And Homicide and Halo-Halo takes place, it's centered around a beauty pageant, which brings up some of that, like that friction between her and her cousin Bernadette, like her, you know, that frenemy thing going on. But it also is connected to her past, because her mother, who has passed away when she was a child, was a beauty queen as well. So like there's a lot going on in those books right there. But so while she was dealing with those things, I felt like what she needed in a romantic partnership maybe was a little bit different than what she needed in book 1 from a romantic partnership. And so unconsciously, I was making it like very one-sided. My editor actually had to be like, hey, you know, that love triangle in the first book was so much fun. Do you think you could maybe include this person more? And I was like, oh, I didn't even notice that this one person like barely showed up in like my very early original draft. And so I had to like think about where they would naturally fit and why they would fit and how they would feel, knowing that she seems to be leaning a particular way as opposed to, you know, and so like, so, you know, I was able to massage that part a little bit.
You weren't too obvious after all the revisions, right?
Oh, I mean, I tried.
Don't say anything. I want to read it, so don't.
Yeah.
But so, you know, obviously it's a 3-book contract, as you said, and just how was the process of sort of chopping up, like obviously you had this whole story in your head, but having to kind of, I guess, chop it up into 3 different parts, like what challenges did you encounter in having to do that? Like, did some of book 2 spill into book 3, or, you know, or did you feel like you had to cut book 1 short in order to make room for book 2?
No, I mean, so with this particular genre, like cozy mystery, like the good and like sometimes difficult thing is that they're meant to be standalones, you know. So if you walked into the bookstore and, you know, in 2 weeks when Homicide and Halo comes out, if you haven't read Arsenic and Adobo and you see, you're like, Halo, what is that about? You know, and you pick it up, you would still be able to follow the story. You wouldn't get maybe some of the nuances in the character relationships, obviously, because I spent a lot of time setting that up in book 1, but I explain enough. So the tough thing about that is that I have to be able to explain things to new readers without boring people who like, I just read that, I know, why are you explaining again what Tita means and who this person is? And like, well, I need, you know, people read things out of order. I never know, you know, so I have to be mindful of how I introduce every single person again, but still making it new and interesting and dropping something different each time. But the good thing is that you know, each thing is its own little world. Like, you know, every mystery is self-contained, you know, it's introduced in that book and it gets solved in that book. So you don't have to be like, oh, I'm not going to find out who the killer is until book 7. Like, no, like you, again, it's its own complete thing.
Oh man, you mean, yeah, no, I blanked out. I was like gonna reference a mystery book that I recently read, and I, you know, or mystery series that I recently read, and I just blanked out the title. So never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. So for book 2, what do you think? What's the takeaway for the readers? Obviously, in book 1, you see Leela develop, like, you know, introduction and seeing her character development. In book 2, like, do we see more of the character development in her? Like, does she become more of a secure person in her roots? Having Bruja, the coffee shop with Adema and
Elena.
Yes. Sorry, I blanked out. I was
Okay.
like, oops. Running that coffee shop, and just how what dynamics should we look out for, or don't reveal any
Yeah.
surprises, but just, what should we look forward to with
Mhm.
Homicide and Halo-Halo?
Oh, that's like a really good question. So another thing that I'm trying to that is a tough balancing act is that, again, because you're supposed to be able to pick up the series at any point, I can't have the characters like change radically,
Mhm.
but at the same time she has to change. Like it's kind of boring to have a static character, especially like who's static at 25. Like you're learning so many things, right? Just so much about the world is changing for you, particularly her, what she's getting
Yeah.
thrown into. So I try to make it so that there are different aspects that she needs to work. Like I don't want her to be retrying the same thing over and over again, because that gets boring. You can only hit that so many times. But you know, we're all works in progress. Like they're
Exactly.
um, not everything is forward movement. Sometimes we stumble back a few before we finally figure things out. So with this book, it was really important to me to kind of show um, that like it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to accept help, because I know, particularly, I mean, for lots of communities, but particularly in the Asian community, like mental health is something that's not necessarily taken seriously enough, particularly of certain generations. And with all that she's dealing with, there's a side where I'm just like, yeah, I wanted to show like, hey, you can't do everything on your own. It's okay to accept help. And then another like kind of like through line is that love is complicated, and not like romantic love, but I mean like love in all its forms. Particularly parental love can
Mhm.
be complicated in how it is shown. And so you have to learn to either let people love you the way that they can, or learn to ask for what you need. And if not, you have to decide like, is this good enough, or are you going to have to, cut some ties, or make some sort of decisions on things like that.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. I'm like, oh, can it be February 8th already, please? I sound like such a fangirl, and I apologize.
No, I appreciate it. It's still, again, this is so still unreal for me. I'm holding these books in my hand. I know that they're real, obviously, but at the same time, it's one of those things that until like it happens, like my author friends and I talk about this, like you dream about something for so long, and then you achieve it, and it's awesome. But at the same time, like you expect like your world to change. You expect everything about like you achieved your lifelong dream, and then you're like, oh, okay, and it's still Tuesday, and I still have to go to my day job, or I still have to, oh, my dog is sick. I got it. Like nothing materially changes around you. You're just kind of like, oh, I'm still the same person I was before. I just now have this really great accomplishment, honestly, but still just, oh, it's a weird, like, anticlimactic moment sometimes when because you expect everything about your world to change, and then you realize, oh, that's not how the world works, right? The world isn't centered around you, right? They're not going to stop on February 8th and be like, throwing me a parade because my book is coming out. Like, no, it's just going to be, like I said, a Tuesday. It's nothing.
And that's funny. You actually stepped into the next question, which was like, what has changed between the launch of, Arsenic and Adobo to now to Homicide and Halo-Halo? But you already answered it.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add?
I mean, some of it, like I've made some like really, really amazing friends in the community. I honestly don't think that I would have made it through like the ups and downs of what debut year has been like, or writing in a pandemic and just trying to get by without like this really strong supportive group of author friends that I've made. Some who I have had even before I was published, and then they've been there with me all along the way, and they've seen how I've grown, and they're super happy for me. And a lot of them are other debuts like me that we kind of banded together because like we're from the same publisher, we were debuting together, so like we were all like learning together. And so I guess like out of all of this, like the biggest thing I've really learned and gained is like community. Because you know, like one book can be a hit and then the next one could tank, and then maybe I don't sell another book. You know, like, so everything is so uncertain. So I'm trying. Last year I felt like I was too overwhelmed to fully be in the moment. So this year I'm trying to just celebrate everything, the little wins, and just be happy instead of wondering, oh, but what's next? Oh, but how is it selling? Oh, what are the reviews? You know, like just like, you know, finishing a book is not easy. So like, you know, take a moment and celebrate yourself. Or, you know, or creating any piece, anyone who is a creator, like you made a song, you finished a book, like that's hard. So like take that moment to just be like, oh, I did that, you know, like celebrate you.
No, absolutely. I mean, you know, I probably like schedule wise, I would think your schedule for the past was it May? Yes, May when you started. It was like, wait, May? Yes, May when you started all this was probably more packed, but absolutely, like having a book out in a bookstore, it's a huge accomplishment. Some people like me can only do, yeah, I mean, you know, I write the articles and the blog posts, but that's a totally different beast from actually sitting down and having this story in front of you for X amount of time and having the characters play around in your head 10,000 times. You know, I mean, that takes a lot of patience, perseverance, and just living in your head a lot. So yes, enjoy it, please.
I'm trying to just be more like in the moment, chill, just like relax. It'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do have one important question for you.
Yeah.
Longanisa.
Yeah.
Is she gonna be like an IG superstar in the second book?
So it's so like I'm like, wow, who knew the breakout star? Because people are like, oh, like I want to see more Longanisa. So like I'm like slowly finding like in book 2, she does show up a little bit more, not a ton more, but I try to have her a little bit more involved. In book 3, I'm like very like, okay, what are some ways I can naturally have her? I guess it's a dog friendly cafe, and you know, just like to have an excuse to have her around more, because like got to give the people what they want.
No, I thought that was so cute. And then actually I told my daughter that the book's dog's name was Longanisa, and she goes, that's perfect. And we had gotten a dog last year, and she's like, why didn't I name her Longanisa? Like, because she doesn't look like a Longanisa. So, you know, but that was really cute. I like that addition. I was like, you know, she's just sitting there at the cafe having that breakdown moment because she wants to talk to a demon. She's scrolling down through everything. And then Longanisa, I was like, oh my gosh. How true is that?
Oh, yeah.
Society nowadays.
It's like I remember I read like an interview a while ago with an author saying like that they didn't give the detective like pets or anything like that, because readers would always like, because if you did, like readers would always be like, well, who's taking care of the dog? Or like, did anyone feed the cat? Or did, you know, and I just realized like, oh my goodness, I haven't mentioned her in forever. Or like, you know, so like in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm sure her aunt or grandmother went home and, you know, like while she's investigating. So now that's why like I had to like figure out a way to keep her close by and be like, look, she's clearly being taken care of, don't worry. But like she could still disappear and investigate when she has to. It's such a weird like thing to have to keep track of.
Exactly. But no, like,
is the dog okay? I'm like, yes, the dog has been fed. You know, she has like a new high schooler taking her for a walk. It's fine, she'll be fine.
I laugh because, you know, I mean, the dog will be fine. You can leave them, you know, for little space and have them have their food and they put her there. She'll be fine. But no, I don't know. I have this notion that I think Longanisa should have her own series too, like a children's book.
Oh, I would love that. Maybe it can be like an in-world thing. Like if if it goes on long enough, like there'll be, you know, like in the town, like a child's, you know, author, like a children's author who creates like a little, and she becomes her own like star, and that has like to be a whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so adorable.
Yes, go for it. I leave it in your capable hands.
I want to write that down. No joke. I'm pulling out a pen right now.
No, absolutely. I have this vision of like Longanisa and her little like Sherlock hat, running around with her own gang, and she has her own story to tell apart from Leela.
Yeah.
You really are writing this down.
I'm writing this down. Hey, good ideas. This is something I can develop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I just my only caveat for that is that I want a signed copy when you.
Oh yeah. Like I wrote it down, like I said, Longanisa children's book in Shady Palms World. I'm like, I'm gonna figure out a way to make this happen. We'll see.
Oh man.
Sell it at the cafe.
Yes. Ooh. She'll have her gang in the cafe planning stuff. That's not a bad idea. but that's a segue. So we're coming back. So when I know when it's coming out, but can you tell the audience when Homicide and Halo-Halo is coming out in the bookstores, and where can they buy it, etc.?
Yeah. So Homicide and Halo-Halo is available on February 8th. The ebook and audiobook should be available at the same time, and it's available, most areas wherever books are sold. Of course, I prefer that you frequent your local indie if you can. If not, I'm partnered with a few independent bookstores where if you pre-order from them, you will receive like a signed book plate and some swag. So there is Bel Canto Books, Filipino owned, where in California? I'm trying to remember. I want to say Long Beach, California. So they are taking pre-orders. They have signed book plates and bookmarks while supplies last. Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. They also have a special pre-order swag package with a signed book plate, bookmark, and sticker. But if you would like signed personalized copies, you can order from my local indie, which is the Book Table in Oak Park, Illinois.
Perfect. Yeah, no. People were asking the last time, and they're like, I didn't quite catch where I could get it. As far as the indie bookstores,
yeah,
it's also available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. But absolutely, I go to the local indie bookstore here, so but as far as parting words, for authors that have already released their first book, any advice to give them?
So if you've already done your first book, it's not just you. The second book is much harder. So don't feel bad about that. And I feel like, at least with me personally, because now that I've done it before, I know more what to expect ahead of time. And I know how to best prepare myself, mentally, self-care wise, fun celebration wise, promo wise, and really take the time to make sure that at least on that day, earlier, because I always said that, it can feel kind of anticlimactic because for everyone else, it's just at least for that one day, do something big or small that makes you feel special to celebrate the fact that you managed to do this, right? It's a big feat to finish a manuscript. It's an even bigger feat to find that agent. It's even bigger to get it published. That's a huge deal. So for one day at least, let yourself enjoy the moment.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mia, for coming on to the show, talking about your book. Again, Mia P. Manansala, author of Arsenic and Adobo, and her second book, Homicide and Halo-Halo. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.